Hi everyone, Ann O'Connell with OC Publishing here, and welcome to the author journey. I'm so happy to say that we're finally getting some beautiful warm weather here in Nova Scotia, and today's guest is actually also here in Nova Scotia. We like to mix it up a bit, but happy to have our fellow Nova Scotia authors join us today. And we have really exciting news because this author is a double Nova Scotia Book Awards nominee. And today we have Heather Fegan, who's a freelance journalist and writer. She's a graduate of the University of King's College School of Journalism, and Heather has been a storyteller since age 5, regaling her family with updates on her own Heather Chronicles. Gutsy, which explores her personal experiences. I have it here on my handy Kindle. I love to sometimes read on Kindle, but I also like to have a hardcover book in hand. But Gutsy explores her personal experience of navigating Crohn's disease over 25 years, along with expert insights from doctors, nurse practitioners, dietitians, and researchers. It is her debut book. She lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia with her husband and 2 daughters. And as I said, she has been nominated for 2 Nova Scotia Book Awards, and her book Gutsy is published by Nimbus. And let's bring Heather up and talk about her author journey and all that's going on in her life. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
So good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. And I can't believe when we finally met in person at Booktoberfest,
That's
and
right.
you were running around in I think a double capacity, both as an author and in your role at the Atlantic Publishers Marketing Association. And we were standing there chatting, and I had this light bulb moment, and I'm like, okay, this Heather is the same Heather as APMA Heather. And we'd been firing emails back and forth. So it's just like, oh my goodness, like sometimes it takes a little bit to get through the fog. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. And actually, I was going to say this is the ebook version, which, and whoopsie, here it is GCA certified. And if I remember correctly, those emails that we had going back and forth were talking about that accessible certification. So very excited that Gutsy, the ebook, is accessible. So very, very important element in what's happening in the industry these days. So
Sure.
unbelievable. So are you excited?
I am. I'm really excited. Surprised that to see those 2 book nominations come in, but honored as well. So
Yeah, and those are right around the corner. It's kind of award season for us. So we'll be watching how that all unfolds. So I wish you the best of luck. So Gutsy, oh my goodness. So I've actually almost finished. I'm almost at the end, but I'm very happy to obviously realize that it is a happy ending because here you are with us. But it's been a bit of a roller coaster, right? 25-year roller coaster.
yes, yeah, diagnosed 25 years ago. And so, yeah, it's, the whole journey's condensed into 1 book. So it's a
Mhm.
lot when you take it in all at once. Of course, it's been, a couple decades for me, but yeah, it's my story with Crohn's disease.
It's an amazing story of resilience, and you talk about Crohn's warriors, and how does that sort of manifest itself, like the Crohn's warrior, like give it, like what is that in a little nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, chronic illness, and then also invisible illness. Like Crohn's can be very much an invisible disease. You can look fantastic and no one knows. Well, for any person, no one knows really what's going on behind the scenes. But
Mm,
there were parts of the book that came out. My friends were like, "I had no idea," or "I should have known," or "You should have said
mm,
something." And it's like it's a chronic disease, like it's full time, right? So you don't want to. I don't want to. If I dwelled on it and I, kind of cave to it all the time, that wouldn't be so fun or so great. And so a Crohn's warrior is someone who just sort of carries on and carries through to the best of their abilities and
mm.
and
And yeah, really, it's
right. Yeah.
was kind of resonated with me. My mom had Crohn's, that was diagnosed a bit later. So she was one of the older, like you talk about the different, stages of life that it can
Mhm.
manifest. And I think she was in her 60s or 70s. But she was a warrior too. So I smiled when I read that. So, and I thought, what a roller coaster. But this book, you have so much detail, which I think for somebody in particular who has just been diagnosed maybe, or a family member that's trying to help, is gold. But how did you gather all of those details? Like, did you keep journals through the years? Like, how did you, because
Yeah.
there's very, very specific dates and scenarios. So talk about how you gathered all of that.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I sort of saw this as a big research project.
Mhm.
I'm a journalist by training, a freelance writer. And so I approached it as one big project. And when I had my publishing contract in place, and that's when I started the work on the research.
Mhm.
So I hauled out, I have at least 10, if not more, journals and diaries from
Oh my goodness.
school straight through to college. I always kept a journal, always kept a diary.
Wow.
So saved them for a reason. Pulled them up and read back through them all. Some cringy, some cringy passages there, but ended up being
Mm.
really helpful. And then I ordered my medical records, my health records. So what would have been a huge stack, I ordered them electronically, but then just went through from the very beginning, from the first appointments right up until
Wow.
you know the recently as I could. It's probably there's a New Year's worth of a year worth of records there piling up again, but and then yeah, just sort of piece together the timelines. So
Oh my goodness. So what is your process? Like, this is a boatload of information to unpack and sort through. Like, what was the process to, and as you said, your background is in journalism, so that whole research piece is part of your DNA. But also in journalism, you're writing much smaller pieces. So how did you approach that?
for sure. So I started with the memoir piece and telling my story, going through my
Mhm.
journals and from what I knew. And actually, the first 10,000 words of the book were my fourth year sort of honors project. I was in a narrative nonfiction workshop, and we had to write
Oh,
a
excellent.
narrative nonfiction piece. And so that piece was sort of leading up to my diagnosis, up to my first surgery. And I was only a few years beyond that at that time, because that was 15, 20 years ago. So I
Mm.
wrote up to sort of like the fairly recent history at that time. It was that project, and then I finished and walked away. And I actually wrote a pitch to a publisher, put it in my desk drawer, and didn't look at it for like 10 years. Yeah. So I had a good start of the memoir piece, and sort of started building off of that, and then ordered my medical records. But then I started to approach it as a series of articles, as a
Mhm.
series of interviews, because it is my memoir, but it's also mixed in with, an interview with GI doctor, nurse practitioner, dietitian, psychologist, other patients with IBD. So I
Mhm.
did approach it as, a series of smaller bite-sized pieces. I cover off different chapters, drug coverage and um, nutrition and causes and all of that. So I definitely approach it as sort of smaller pieces that, once combined, were this long form memoir and
And
research.
as I say, it's so comprehensive, and you also weave in some like really solid research, and then also the frustration around some of the research that hadn't been done, and I'm particularly referring to some of the issues that you faced when planning your family and planning to get pregnant and have a baby. We talk a little bit about that and the challenges that you faced.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was definitely a piece where I think my editor was sort of probing me. Like, it was very, research. She's like, we want the feeling, we want the emotion. Like, what must you have been feeling at that time? To sort of bring that personality and the humanity to it. And I found that probably the most difficult, because I don't know if perhaps maybe I blocked that out, like the difficult personal parts of it.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you pick up on that, because it was very much like, but how did you feel about what was going on and these decisions that you had to make and the information that you didn't have? And so I definitely had to sort of dig a bit deeper and be a little more honest with myself, going back to what that was like.
And you also talk a little bit about, how having a chronic illness impacts your mental health. And I imagine being a mom and having, that added responsibility of, two little beautiful human beings. At which point did your anxiety sort of start to kick into higher gear? Could you talk a little bit about what you think are panic attacks? And I'm just in that part now, so you might answer that question a little bit later.
Right. That was sort of later, and sort of more recently, I think with just the, medications that I'm taking and the drugs that you're on, and, life is just so busy, and kind of came out of nowhere. And it's probably, years of build up to that point. Because, this book started when I was 15 years old, and mental health was not talked about the way it is now. Like,
Nor was Crohn's,
right.
right? Or
Yeah.
any kind of IBD or IBS.
Yeah, exactly. So many
Mhm.
years of sort of not talking about it, not dealing with it, not handling it. And that was, sort of the idea behind writing the book. So, to share with people that you're not alone, and there is a lot more resource and a lot more talking about it now, especially with social media, brave people sharing their stories and things like that. So probably just it all coming out and things like that, just bringing it to the surface.
Right. And so what was it that triggered? So did you pull that proposal out of your desk drawer at some point and go,
Yeah, so that was a COVID project. It was like, wait,
okay.
COVID hit, everything sort of screeched to a halt. So I was a
Yeah.
freelance journalist. Publications were either reducing their publication schedules or not publishing at all. And so I found myself with some more time to think about, like, what am I doing here? And I was like, oh, well, I should get that pitch out and polish it up and send it off and see. Then ironically, of course, you send it off and you don't hear back for 8 or 9 months. So the world had opened up a bit more, and we were sort of getting back into life. But when I got, when Nimbus connected with me to say that they wanted to move forward with the project. So yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting. And so how long did it take you to write it? Like from the very beginning saying, okay, I'm going to write this book, through all the research and having, a final manuscript to submit.
Yeah. So it was 15 months. So just over a year. Just over
Wow.
a year before I handed it over, the full complete manuscript, handed it over to my editor. And then, of course, right?
The Hail Marys come out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And while I was writing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a humongous word count. I'm never going to hit it. Like, and then you're like, uh-oh, I better wrap this up because I'm going to run out of space. Like, you get back at some point. So it's a
What is the word count?
I think at the end, I think my goal was 80,000 words. So it's somewhere between 70, 80,000 words.
Okay. And I admire, you for doing the actual interviews. And I even more so admire the doctors and nurses who participated. Because I imagine that, and I found that the one of the doctor's comments about a seminar that a psychologist did with them, and the psychologist didn't know the difference between a colonoscopy and
A colectomy, like
colectomy. That's
removing
right.
What a difference between having a look and taking it away.
Yeah, right. And didn't think that mattered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mind-blowing when you realize, when you think about it, and when you hear that, you're like, someone gets away with that. Like, oh my goodness.
And of
Yeah.
course, somebody that lives it day in and day out, you probably have like quite a vernacular in medical jargon.
Yeah, well, especially now, yeah, like I'm an expert. I say I'm an expert patient. I know,
Yes.
a lot of things, and have gone through a lot of it. And I definitely was really appreciative to the doctors and people who took the time to talk, because they're so busy and they're so swamped and they're so overwhelmed. So it was really great for them to take the time to share. And that's what I was going to say when we're talking about the process. I saved those for the end. Like, I did most of my story, then did the interviews, and then I was like caught up to my real life. And so I was like writing in real time. It was just like, gave it to my editor. I was like, take this away before something happens. I have to write another chapter.
Yeah. And I also kudos to your family. How nice that you're surrounded by family, that you're in your hometown. And I fell right in love with Matt, your husband, right from the beginning. Like,
He's gotten
right?
a lot of praise since the book came out. He's kind of
Yeah,
a hero. So
he is. Well, I mean, but you're the warrior. Right, right. Did you pick an excerpt to read for us?
I do have, so it's actually right at the start
Okay.
of my journey. So this is from age 15,
Okay.
right when we're starting out. So um, I remember sitting with my mom in Dr. St. Marie's very small rectangular office at the IWK Health Center, the Children's Hospital for Atlantic Canada, on Friday, February 6th, 1998. All the testing, procedures, and examinations were complete. The office door had opened, and Dr. St. Marie, a petite older woman with a strong French accent, came in and placed my thick file on her desk. Heather, she asked straight away, have you heard of a disease called ulcerative colitis? I hadn't, but this is what she had determined I had. It is an illness with no known cause, perhaps a defective gene or an autoimmune disorder, and no known cure. It's a type of chronic inflammatory bowel disease that attacks the digestive system, causing the intestines to become inflamed, form sores, bleed easily, scar, and lose the natural smoothness of their inner lining. Unlike Crohn's disease, a similar yet distinct condition that can affect any part of the gastrointestinal tract, the symptoms were only affecting my large intestine. Ulcerative colitis affects only the colon, leading Dr. St. Marie to the diagnosis. She then explained that some people have their colon removed to eliminate the disease, but she was confident my symptoms could be brought under control with anti-inflammatory drugs. If you ever need surgery, your body will let you know when it's time, she said, a valuable piece of advice that has stuck with me since that day. She also warned about the unpredictability of the disease. It could flare up and attack at any moment without warning. It could also seemingly disappear and send a patient into blissful remission lasting days, weeks, or even years. Dr. St. Marie also admitted she wasn't 100% certain that this was what was wrong with me. If the disease persists or goes back into remission and comes back again, then we'll all know for sure. I listened to everything she said, took it all in, and thought that I understood. She wrote me a prescription for an anti-inflammatory medication, and I didn't think much of it, apart from the fact I was pleased to be receiving something that would finally make me feel better. I was eager to get back to school. My friends and I had important things to discuss during our grade 9 science class, like what to wear to the next school dance. As sick as I'd been feeling, I had made a conscious effort not to let it affect my life. I refused to miss out on anything and continued to go to school, take dance lessons, and hang out with my friends on the weekend. Where my energy came from, I wasn't sure, because I had a total loss of appetite. When I didn't eat, I had no abdominal contractions, no sharp wrenching cramps. When I didn't eat, I didn't feel any pain. But by the following Monday, I was so ill, I couldn't get out of bed.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking. 15 years old, like just trying to, hang with your friends and go to dances and trying to grapple with this. And you present with such grace and humbleness, humility, and I admire you for what you've done. And I want to give a shout out to the folks who are watching. Francine Cosman has popped on. She is a fellow memoirist and her memoir nurse. So obviously she's pretty interested
Yeah.
in this and what you have to say. And I have to tell you, I didn't realize, even though, I have family and friends who I knew had Crohn's and colitis, I didn't know that Canada was the highest reported cases in the world.
Yeah, so over 300,000 Canadians with
Staggering.
so inflammatory bowel disease, so there's Crohn's
Mhm.
disease and ulcerative colitis. I was first diagnosed with UC and then a lovely combination of Crohn's colitis. So that's among the highest rates in the world. And then Nova Scotia, over 12,000 Nova Scotians, among the highest rates in Canada. So
Wow. I mean, and there really isn't an explanation for that.
Yeah, no known cause or cure, lots of theories, lots of speculation, a lot of research, but it could be lots of research in lots of different areas. So is it our environment? Is it, Western civilization, our diet, genetics? So it's probably a combination of all of that. So you've got a gene that becomes triggered when you're exposed to these elements. Um, Nova Scotia has a lot of, Northern European Celtic descent individuals and families and large families, and Crohn's can run in families. It runs in mine. I've got 2 siblings with it. So
Mm.
yeah.
And that was nice of them to let you tell their story too, in short snippets. And did they enjoy reading the book? Like, what was their feedback?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they were supportive in the process.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
and
yeah.
won't they be partying, hopefully when you come away with those awards. Fingers crossed. Um,
Thank you.
a couple of places you talked, of course, about that roller coaster. And I loved the doctor's reports that I always said, a very lovely, 30-year-old woman, or a very nice, and so, and, trying to maintain that positivity um, must be exhausting. And you talk about teetering on the edge between sickness and health. That in itself must wear you down. Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think it's my nature. I just, and perhaps that's what having chronic illness has taught me, just to make the best of things and, um, enjoy life while you're healthy, and to really sort of like try to live your best life while you can, because you never know what could happen if you're going to be sick. You're going to be really sick, and for
Hmm.
how long. And I think it's just in my nature. And I think that's why I wanted to write the book, to
Hmm.
share that with people, to give them hope, and some inspiration if they're on the same journey. It's the book that I wish I had at the time, with that kind of information, just in a more approachable, relatable way.
Hmm. And kind of opening the conversation, because it's sometimes when you have an illness that that presents itself in some unpleasant ways, it's
Mm.
hard to talk about, and I had irritable bowel syndrome when I was younger, but it never escalated. Of course, there was the concern because of my mom and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
but I remember missing classes at university at the Mount, and my friend saying, "Where were you? I thought you were right behind me, going to class," kind of thing. I'm like, "Sorry," kind of thing, kind of,
Yeah.
so you tell your very closest friends,
Right. Yeah.
but it can be hard to express yourself in a way that folks understand. So, and this book is very approachable, and your personality does come through. So, kudos to you. I think that you've accomplished that goal. And you talk about the friend that you made. Was her name Julie? And she
Julie.
was a
Yeah.
little bit older. And so, how did that sort of support your journey?
Yeah, like there's a whole chapter for Julie in there and her journey. It just, like you say, it's not something that people want to overshare, talk a lot about. It's not a glamorous disease, if any disease is glamorous.
I don't think.
Um, I think it just was that person that just you didn't have to explain anything. You didn't have to
Mhm.
hide anything. It's like they know what I'm talking about. They know exactly how I feel. So it was just nice to have that thread throughout. We kind of ebbed and flowed in our relationship, and times we would, catch up or find out what was
Mhm.
going on. So it just was really nice to have someone, another female, someone, close in age to connect with over something that no one else would understand unless they were also going through it. So
Right. People can be sympathetic,
sure, for sure.
but sometimes, it's like, okay, well, how can I help? What can I do? What can I say? Hold
Yeah.
your hand while you're
Yeah.
on those drips, and 109. I wrote that down somewhere. 109 infusions you had at one point. That was the count.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's not just like when you have it to the extent that you have it, it's not just taking, a couple of pills and everything's fine. I mean, there's lots of pills, but the that infusion, talk about that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's a very common sort of top level treatment. Our infusions that can be every 8 weeks, every 6 weeks. For me, they were down to every 4 weeks to really try to keep
mhm,
things under control. And yeah, a monthly infusion. And then I kind of like seems like my motto with IBD is like if it can go wrong, it will. So then I had developed what could have been an allergy. So then my infusions were like 5 hours long, which eventually, wasn't the worst because I could go and sit in quiet with my feet up for 5 hours.
read a good book.
Exactly, but lots of books or catch up on some work. So, but yeah, it's just something, it's chronic, it's forever. So you need to stay on top of it and then you need to keep treating it.
And are you still doing it every 4 weeks now?
So I've actually switched. I think when the book ends, I've just switched medications to one that I can. That's an injection, so it's just
Okay,
like really quick and easy. So
okay.
and easier
Are
to manage. So
Were you scared of needles, like, way back when, and now it's just, "Oh, well."
no, I've never had any kind of fear like
Oh,
that.
good.
Like I've always been okay with. The only time was when I had to do it because a lot of them are like an EpiPen that's like really quick, but
Oh,
doing it
good.
yourself kind of gets. It kind of wears off and it would be hard to do because it's like, it's going to sting, it's going to hurt, and trying to get through that. But,
It's not easy.
you
So,
know,
tell us about May 19th, World IBD Day.
yeah. So World IBD Days every year on May 19th. And it's just, there are different groups all over the world that just really put a focus to shine a light on IBD on that day. You'll see lots of social media posts about um, IBD patients and Crohn's and colitis and what they are and how it affects people. So that's like a global sort of initiative, and then that's coming up really soon. So it's nice just to just get some focus on the cause and, try to. Crohn's and Colitis Canada is our organization, our national organization that raises funds. They fund a lot of research and a lot of resources for patients. And it's just constantly evolving. Like they have peer program now that's new where you can, people are trained to connect with new patients or other patients and
Great.
trying to get resources to regions that don't have great access to resources. So, it's
And
just
there's a new, I guess it's a program here, IBD Strong?
IBD Strong. Yeah. So that's sort of just coming out now. They've gotten some funding to build a program for people to connect and have like online resources and like chat rooms and
Mhm,
actual other people. I
mhm,
was lucky that I had my friend Julie, but if you don't have that, it's a
mhm.
way to just go out and they're like, here you go, here's somebody. They'll pair you up with someone that sort of matches.
And mental health supports as well. Is that through
Exactly. And
IBD Strong? Mhm.
lots of mental health supports, which again is not, it's being talked about more now, but definitely wasn't in the past. And that's a big part of it. So
Right, right. And so I just wanted to run that, if you want to follow the Heather Chronicles and see what she's been up to, and also uh, visit her website and see all of the wonderful things that are coming up. There's the Heather Chronicles. I love that. HeatherFegan.ca, and she's also on Instagram. And then we also, where's the best place for people to pick up a copy of Gutsy?
yeah, everywhere books are sold. So your favorite local bookstore, your independent store, you can get it at Chapters, Indigo, Amazon. You can get. I've got my
I
copy
love that.
here, or like you showed at the start, it's available as an ebook, accessible ebook as well. So
There
and
it
yeah, then I've
is.
got some events coming up as part of the book awards. May 28th at Central Libraries, the author library. You can check me out for a one-on-one conversation. There'll be some authors there, so I'm really excited about that one. Part of a nonfiction panel on June 1st
Oh, that's excellent.
over at the Dart Gallery. And then, the Nova Scotia Book Awards are June 3rd.
Excellent, excellent. And is there, see, isn't that cute? Look, I love your girls are just gorgeous.
Yeah, they're just babies there. It's a few years old.
And, Anna and Rosie.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So do you have any other advice to folks who might be thinking about writing a memoir or partway through or
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the process. I really enjoyed it. It was a cathartic experience. I think anyone with any kind of illness, I say it's a great exercise because now I have my whole health history. And when you step back and look at your whole health history at once, it's very
right?
different to living it piece by piece. So
Yeah.
it's all in one place. And yeah, it was definitely tough. It was a lot of work, but
I bet. I
my
bet.
favorite
And
time to date.
you probably, you talked about all of those journals, and I guess keeping track of the appointments and symptoms and medications and things is really important because you have to be your own advocate a lot of times,
Definitely.
and a new doctor doesn't have the whole picture. So, and you did emphasize in a couple of places how important it is to to make those decisions that are best for you. Like even if a doctor is pushing one type of treatment, and for you to be able to say, I think we need to
Absolutely.
hold off, or, so, especially when it's invasive kind of surgeries, and you've had a few of those.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, and it's yes, definitely you're your own best advocate, and even the nurse practitioner in the book says, everyone should have sort of a collection of everything because it's too when you're ill, it's hard, especially if you're presenting emergently, you're not
Mhm.
thinking straight, you're not feeling well, you'll be glad that you have that there, that notebook with you.
Absolutely. And so you'll have to bring copies to, you probably already have, to all your hospital support team and
Yeah, they've all got a copy, and I
I
laugh. I said,
bet.
"If I ever unfortunately have to go to Merge again, I'll just walk in, and they always ask you for your whole history."
This is me.
And then the book, so we'll have a read.
Here it is.
Yeah.
10 pounds of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, Heather, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Gutsy, award nominated, and just we're rooting for you, and we'll see you on the award circuit. And
Thank you. Thanks so much.
yeah,
It's been great.
and and if you do Gutsy 2.0, then we'll have you back.
Yeah.
Thanks again. And thank you for joining us on this week's author journey. We'll see you again next time as we talk all things books and writerly, and hopefully that you're having a great day. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.